agencies that are affiliated with the training and learning of our students. Can I have a show of hands? Some of the folks are coming from outside our school. Are there any agencies, any people? Oh, we got one back there. All right. Thank you very much. I know we will have others coming too. And so, as you know, for a while now, especially over the past year and a half, we have been witnessing a great deal of violent and difficult situations taking place in work settings, universities, other places where people gather around the country. And so it behooves us to kind of like do all we can to take the necessary steps to have at least be ready to respond, be ready to at least know what first few steps to take when a situation like this takes place. The goal is that you don't feel that you have to improvise too much when a situation like that happens, but that you instead have somewhat of a map of how you and others are expected to behave that under those situations. We are fortunate here at Albizu that we have among our faculty not only a great psychologist, but an expert on law enforcement issues, Dr. Jaime Picanol, who will be leading us today in what we think is going to be the first of a series of trainings on how to deal with this type of difficult situation. So today is an active shooting, active shooter response, and then we'll have other training opportunities as the semester and the year unfolds. I want to thank Jaime for being here with us, and I'll leave it to him.
Good morning. I remember many years ago, many administrations ago, I trained an active shooter from the law enforcement point of view up in Camp June with the Marines, and that was before Columbine. They were already doing this. And then afterwards, we trained, after the Secret Service got together, we started going to schools and training schools in how to respond to an active shooter. So I was kind of like very passionate about that, and so many administrations ago I came to somebody who was the director and said, hey, maybe we need to implement an active shooter training here, and the response was, don't worry, nobody knows we're here. And that was it. Now, there was truth to that, because chances are that we will not ever experience an active shooter instance. However, those that you've seen on the news that did experience an active shooter, they probably thought the same thing. This will never happen to me. And so, chances are that you'll get hit by lightning before an active shooter, but the thing is that the chances are there, and we don't want to be caught unprepared. What I'm going to present today is just to put you in a mindset, just so you'll think about it. Many of you are psychologists in the mental health field, and you know that we tend to have mental imagery, and that's how we get our mindset. That's how we train. And this is what I'm going to try to present here. Now, there are a couple of videos that may be disturbing to some folks, but the reason I'm presenting them is that I want to get you into the mindset, because sometimes when we think something's not going to happen to us, we just don't get into the mindset. We don't worry about it. So there are some videos here that I guarantee will elicit some visceral reactions. Your heart will start to go a little bit faster. The intention there is for you to focus and to then have that mindset. Because what I'd like for you to do is to play these things in your mind, because that is the best training. That's how law enforcement trains. Law enforcement trains with mental imagery, because then when something happens, you react. You don't spend too much time thinking. When you spend too much time thinking and wondering what's going on, that's when you get into trouble. When you've already thought about something, then you react. And that's what we're going to do here. All right. Yeah. I'm always used to technical issues.
Any of the IT folks here?
Let's try it again. Okay, so that didn't work. All right, so again, frame of reference. You have a frame of reference when you have thoughts, feelings about an issue. You have a strong frame of reference when you have a personal experience with that issue. However, it is difficult to have a frame of reference about an issue that you have no feelings about. We don't want to think about anything happening to us. You have no personal experience or behavior with it. A lot of people haven't ever experienced a traumatic situation. And hopefully it'll never happen. And you have never thought about it. Sometimes people just shut the TV because they don't want to see what's going on. They don't want to really be bombarded with all this bad news that's going on. That's the reality of life. That's what's going on. And we need to be prepared for it. And unfortunately, that's the life that we're living today. Oops. So don't believe it could ever happen to you. And that's the frame of reference. That it can happen. If you think that it can happen, and it does happen, at least you're prepared. It doesn't surprise you. All right, history shows there's been an increasing number of active shooter and workplace violent incidents. I attribute that to a lot of media exposure. There's a lot of media that just sensationalizes, it just gives us a lot of exposure, so we tend to think there's a lot of it going on, but historically it's been going on for many, many years. Increased situational awareness instills a sense of security within the workplace. These are two videos that they will work, that I want to show you, because these videos, instead of just telling you what to do, I want you to see what to do. So it's kind of like multimodal. I want you to see what to do, and then I tell you what to do. That'll kind of like put you in that frame of reference, frame of mind. We'll get to it. I'm sure it'll work. I don't know what the other one is. All right. So we're going to develop an emergency plan, individual actions in response, and identify evacuation routes and staging area and rally points. There was a question that somebody had asked me, which is a valid question, as to should we have people on campus armed? I don't think so, unless you're a police officer. And even that, I'm a police officer, and I have the ability to carry a firearm on campus. But in an active shooter, the only reason I would ever use it if the shooter's right in front of me and it's my life or his. Because if I have a gun in my hand, I could be also, hey, look, the guy's got a gun. He's also the active shooter. And when the police come in, then that's trouble. So that's not something that I recommend to anybody to have a gun. All right. Here we're going to talk about how to survive. The mode is to survive. And also I'm going to talk about understand law enforcement response and role. Because a lot of people think that when law enforcement get here, they're coming here to save me. Law enforcement had that in the past when they worked with a hostage situation. This is not a hostage situation. This is an active shooter. An active shooter has only one intention: to come in and kill as many people as they can. And then maybe kill themselves. High percentage of active shooters commit suicide. A couple of past instances that you may remember: Columbine, 1999, Wilton Harris, one teacher was murdered, 12 students, 20 students injured. Their intention was to annihilate the entire school. They planned this for 9 months. That's another thing, active shooters plan. They planned it for 9 months. They had all sorts of notes, had massive amount of weapons. It's a good thing that a lot of their homemade bombs didn't go off, or else we would have had more casualties. It was deliberate, robotic, no fear. They went in. I'll show you a video which could be a little bit disturbing, but it shows you the type of individual that this active shooter can be. All right, so before you start, it can be disturbing, but I want you to see a couple of things here that I'm going to talk about later on. Is that when people are confronted with this, they get a lot of tunnel vision. They don't hear. This happens to police officers too in shooting. You get tunnel vision, you don't hear, and sometimes they don't hear what they're saying because the adrenaline is rushing. And we tend to just follow the crowd instead of trying to react rationally to what we should do. When we follow the crowd, we may be following the crowd in the wrong direction. That's what happens here. The other thing that I'm going to go over is that the three things that run, hide, or fight. But you want to escape instead of hiding. Hiding, you want to hide, but you want to take cover. But you always want to escape. If you're hiding somewhere and you have the opportunity to leave, then you do that. So escape is the key word here. Hide, but really escape. If you don't, let's see what happens. All right. Working earlier. It worked. Start now.
Good job.
Can you hear me? Andre? Andre, you pick up?
They had planned this, and they had planned it on a special date, on April 20th, on the birthday of Adolf Hitler. They were two individuals that already had criminal history, anger management, loners in school, those that people tend to just avoid. And that is a typical type of shooter because he's looking for some kind of revenge or he's looking to be infamous, which is another thing that in some areas law enforcement is not bringing up the name of the active shooter anymore. So they don't start to know that, or at least they know that they're not getting that name because a lot of them just want to be infamous. So that's something that some law enforcement agencies are doing. Right. A couple other scenarios. Adam Lanza, 20 years old, killed his mother, then took a semi-auto, an AR-15 assault rifle. If you're not familiar with it, an AR-15 assault rifle is like a .223. It's a small bullet, but it goes at 2,350 feet per second. So when it hits body mass, it'll just tear it up. It'll come in with a little hole here, and it'll exit with a big hole that way. All right, so it just tears up. So that can do massive casualties. Had two handguns, 28 dead, including 20 children. This was at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. You may remember that. With suicide. He was a loner. Said he had Asperger's. Spent most of his time on the computer playing violent video games, quiet to depth, which could not be penetrated. The Secret Service, after Columbine, met with a lot of law enforcement agencies and did a lot of workshops trying to figure out what is the profile of an active shooter, especially in schools. They couldn't come up with a profile because when they did, it just kind of describes just about every kid, awkward, reserved, and everything that kind of describes high school kids. Colorado Planned Parenthood active shooter at odds with current medical practice, single location suspect immediately identified, 3 dead, 9 injured. In Paris, France, remember the attack there, 130 dead, over 100 injured. This was probably an ISIS motivated attack. San Bernardino, terrorist attack, first spot as a workplace violent incident, single location, suspect team identified and killed, 14 dead. So there are different motives for a lot of the active shooters. But I'll tell you statistics in our campus or in any campus, 60% of the active shooter is a student. 11% is staff. 20% is somebody that just comes from the outside. And of that 60% is about 30-some% is a current student. The other 30% could be a former student. So what defines an active shooter? An active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated place. Active shooter situations are unpredictable and evolve quickly. Quickly because it takes 10 to 15 minutes. You can go in with an assault rifle and you can quickly, in 5 minutes, do massive amount of damage. How long does it take police to get here? Maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe even 20 minutes. That's why we need to be prepared, because we can't wait till law enforcement get here and not do anything. Typically, the immediate deployment of law enforcement is required to stop the shooter and mitigate harm to victims. Because active shooter situations are over within 10 to 15 minutes before law enforcement arrives on the scene. So you must be prepared both mentally and physically to deal with the active shooter situation. More mentally. When you have a good frame of mind, you'll survive. In combat situation, when individuals have that frame of mind of survival, they've been mortally wounded and they keep on going. I've heard that before. Not always limited to the lone shooter, multiple suspects may be involved. Now, that could present a dangerous situation when you have more than one suspect. May be an immediate coworker, previous customer, planned terrorist attack, or student, former student. And I think I read somewhere where there was a faculty member who didn't get the tenure at a faculty meeting and then went ahead and started shooting everybody at that faculty. It's a good thing we don't have tenure. And the incident may be well planned, which it was in many of the cases, with numerous methods and weaponry. How did these two teenage students, one was 18, get their hands on so much weapons? Well, they had help. They had people who actually provided for the weapons. I have an entire PowerPoint that I put in some of my criminal justice classes. And if you saw the amount of weapons they had, you'd just be appalled. They had enough weapons to just start an army. Because they're available. So, some of the characteristics of an active shooter. They always tell somebody, especially in the case of students, they want to tell somebody what's going on. There's been instances where they told, we're going to go shoot, and I remember the school where all the students were up in the mezzanine and they were actually waiting for it, just watching how the student killed the professor and or the teacher and somebody else. They were even videotaping, just kind of waiting for it. The shooting is always planned, and the motive is revenge, to make it fair, because that's what they feel. They feel like they've been signed, they feel like nobody has paid attention to them, and life is just not fair for them. They have a history of depression, 78% of them are suicidal at the time of the shooting. It's always somebody who's different. And they act out their emotional needs to feel wanted, to feel a part. You know, I always say that when you went through high school, if you were the popular one, that's great. If you were the unpopular one, that's great, because at least they knew you were the unpopular. If you were the bully, at least they knew you were the bully. If you were the drug dealer, the drug dealer. But if you're the one that said, who are you? That's worse, when you're neglected, when nobody knows exactly who you were. What do you mean, who am I? I sat next to you in class for the last 2 or 3 years. Never noticed you. That's the individual that feels like, you didn't notice me then, you're going to notice me now. Usually they're abused, or they felt abused, socially isolated, socially anxious, aggressive as children, chronically depressed or suicidal thoughts. Odd kids have few friends, if any. Odd kids are teens. They try their parents' patience and love. So there's always a history. You can look at it. But it seems like we see that history after the shooting. And this is one of the important things that now we need to start looking for those flags in people. There is always a threat made. So one of the things I want to say before I forget later, if there is a threat, because we also have to do some kind of a threat assessment. If somebody makes a threat, we cannot take that as a joke. We have to take the seriousness of the threat and look into it and see how credible or viable that threat is. Allusions to violence, excessive or intimidating reference to mass murder or shooting sprees, real or fiction, intimidating weapon comments, paranoia, repeatedly accusing others of causing one's problems, and unreasonable complaints. These are individuals that we tend to know that's a problematic individual. Their emotional needs is they want to be heard or seen, and by shooting, they will be heard or seen because they've seen it. They've seen it on TV and they get the ideas. To be recognized, to become infamous, to be seen as powerful. Cleboten Harris walked into that school and there was an individual, another student coming out, and they told that student, leave, your life is saved today. That's the power they have, the power over life and death. To have their unbelievable pain and rage acknowledged and become infamous. And the media does a good job of that. A little bit of biology, normal brain activity. Proactive killers, they kill to achieve a thought-out goal, such as robbery. So this is not going to be pretty much your active shooter. This is somebody who's just going to go do something. He wants to gain something, and it's kind of like I want the chain off of this guy, and I'll get it no matter what. If I have to shoot him, I'll take the chain off. However, the abnormal brain activity is reactive killers kill in response to real or imagined insults, which is worse because this is now imagined. So they think that everybody has insulted them. Everybody has mistreated them. I don't know if you like reptiles, but you kind of like snakes. They're reactive killers, low prefrontal activity. So they don't really think much. That's executive functions. High limbic activity, very emotional about things. High singular gyrus activity, so they very good social norms. They're aggressive, obsessive. There's no empathy. I don't think both Harris had any empathy, especially when you have somebody in front of you just shooting them or screaming. There's no empathy at that point. At that point, the active shooter is determined. And that's what makes the active shooter so dangerous. They're determined. They're not there to rob a bank. They're not there to try to escape. They're there saying, this is my final say. So they're there to die. They're going to take out as many as they can with them. What would you expect? I don't know if that first video got you going a little bit. I kind of tend to look at the audience. And it does to me every single time I've seen it, and I've seen it plenty of times. If it doesn't, I've had a problem with myself if it didn't. You start to hyperventilate. Your heart starts to accelerate, beat faster. Your adrenaline, you get this adrenaline rush, and you lose that peripheral vision, and you don't hear. Police officers or in the military, you're in a shooting, they'll tell you later on, did you hear I was calling you? You don't hear anything. You just kind of focus on one thing and you don't hear. And that could be a problem too, because if there's an active shooter, somebody tell you, run this way, and you're just focused on something, and you don't hear what people are telling you. And that's why later on I said that you need to escape and help yourself first before trying to help somebody else. And that may sound a little bit insensitive, but the bottom line is you need to survive. And if everybody survives individually, then everybody will get out. There are 3 phases of our mental disaster response: denial, deliberation, and decisive moments. All right, so the denial is delay action. Like, is there a shooting going on? It's like at the nightclub in Orlando. What's it called? What? Oh, Pulse, right. The initial reaction was, oh, are these fireworks? And so that's not, I started thinking, is these fireworks? We start see, if you hear shooting right now, what do you think? Well, in this class right now, you start running. I didn't want to bring the reality to an extreme like getting an actor to start shooting, because I didn't want anybody to have a heart attack. But they do that a lot. All right. But delay action costs time. And even though we need to think, but if you think too much about it, you're wasting time. Here's the mindset I have. The mindset law enforcement has is that if you think, you can get killed. When somebody pulls a gun at you, what are you going to do? It's too late. It's done. So you have to react. You think, and that's probably why we have a lot of bad shootings, because they react with poor training. But when you train well, you react as you train. And the training you're going to do is up here. You're easy. All right, and delay action can't cost lives. You're familiar with diffusion of responsibility. In ambiguous situations, we look for others for cues on how to act. And you saw it in that video. Everybody was running in one direction. Wait a minute, we're running right into the face of danger. So now all of a sudden they're running in the other direction because you don't know where to go. Everybody's going that way, you go that way. If everybody had their own plan of action, everybody go in the correct direction. If they do nothing, you'll do nothing. If they act, you'll act. That also happens when we get to the fight situation. You saw how that girl was underneath the table screaming. At that point, you're going to get killed. You might as well do something. At least try and fight. Because sitting there and screaming, their intention is to kill you. You can't say, oh, please. The police are not going to do it. You're already a victim. And you don't want to be a victim. You want to be a survivor. So you're not going to get that victim out of your head. With survival mode in your head. You're a survivor. All right, so once you pass the denial phase and you know, oh yeah, we have a shooting here, what do? But the fear enters the equation. I don't know if you've ever been overwhelmed with fear, but fear can really cloud your judgment, and it can paralyze someone, especially when you have bullets kind of flying in your direction. So the brain doesn't work very well. Some of the side effects, again, ability to think seriously is impaired. Your vision narrows, time distortion, seems like forever, it goes forever. You get into a shooting, and it's only maybe a couple of seconds, maybe, I don't think anybody can survive an hour in a shooting situation. It's like this couple of minutes and it's gone, but it seemed like forever. Again, auditory exclusion, and your fine motor skills deteriorate. Sometimes your legs may even buckle. You get so scared you just can't even run, and you just buckle. And you shake. And you freeze. And you can't move. Think through the events before disaster, plan your response, and practice your response. And I always relate to law enforcement because we do this. But you can do this on your own too. You walk into a restaurant and you sit in a restaurant. You know law enforcement's never like to have their back to the door. Heard that. Well, why is that? Because I don't want to be surprised. But you walk into a place and right away, as you're there, you look at the exits. Well, what if you go into a 7-Eleven, 7-Elevens are always getting robbed. So you go into a 7-Eleven, what happens all of a sudden somebody comes in here and robs? What do I do? So you play in your mind, well, let's see, there's an exit here, but if he's there, well, there's a bottle here. I'll just take that bottle and I'll throw it over to him and I'll just hit him with the bottle. What? You kind of mentally think about it. So you're never surprised. Now you say, that's a pretty bad way of having to live every day. Well, it's your choice. Either you prepare for the worst, or you just forget about it. Like the first slide. You have to feel it, and it can't happen to anybody. Right. So the best way to get the brain to perform under extreme stress is to repeatedly run it through rehearsals beforehand, kind of like mental imagery. You do that with patients or clients who have a lot of anxiety, imagery, go to your happy place. You can do that yourself. Well, what if all of a sudden something happened? You're sitting in your office and just think, what if something happened? What would I do? And think. Because I guarantee you, if something ever happens, hopefully not, but if it does, you'll be mentally prepared. All right. So you go through the denial, deliberate, you act, and you're prepared. One thing that you don't ever want to do is to have to think in a disaster. That was quoted by a 9/11 survivor. But that was all right, so some of the plans. Establish policy, protocol, and standard operating procedures. And so we do have a committee now, and we've started to plan for anything that may happen in the school. I was going to say myself, but I'll say it because then I'll forget. So one of the things that I spoke to the provost, to Lewis, Marvin, we have put locks in all the doors in all the classrooms because the new building didn't have locks. So now in any classroom that you're in and in any office that you're in, it should have a lock, or you should have the ability to lock the door. So that's a good idea. If something happens, the first thing you want to do is lock the door, because if your shoe is right there, you don't want to run out and do that. At least you want to lock it. So that's a good thing that we've done. We've secured all the exits, because I remember some of the doors were not closed, so now the doors work. We have a lot of exits here, and I've got a map, and I'm going to show you all the exits, because everybody should be familiar with the exits. Matter of fact, everybody that works here should be very familiar with the entire campus. And if you're not, take 5-10 minutes, walk around the school, and look where all the exits are at. Be familiar with the school. So if something ever happens, you know where to go. You're not lost. All right. Realistic emergency evacuation plans by location, and I'll show you that map and the plan that I kind of devised. Identify exit strategies to safely exit the building or hide in a place. One of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to hide in a bathroom. Remember what happened at Pulse? Don't hide in a bathroom because it doesn't have a lock. Don't hide under a desk because, well, you saw what happened there. And when you hide, you don't want to hide behind curtains. That's not going to work either. This doesn't stop bullets. Hiding is taking cover, and cover means that a bullet will stop. That's good hiding. Taking cover. When I get to the map, there's a primary and secondary exit plan. Because the reality is when you exit the building, everybody has to congregate in one area, because then it's up to HR, the provost, to make sure that who's here and who's not here. Because who's not here may be in here. We need to let police know. And this also, because I know we have folks that are from other agencies, but this applies to your agency too. Everything I'm saying, you can adapt it to your agency. Be familiar with the floor plan and all the exits, exit doors and hiding places, locking rooms, identify objects that may aid in your defense. Because it may get to the point that you're confronted and you can't run, you can't hide. And so what are you going to do? Are you going to be a victim or are you going to be a survivor? And the survivor will get whatever they have, a chair, a fire extinguisher, whatever, and fight. At least it gives you a chance. And provide periodic training and visual aids. One of the things that I envision, that this is great, because this is the first thing that puts you in a mindset. The second thing that I envision here is to have a mock scenario. The Miami-Dade Police Department, I used to work with them in the past, they love to do this. They go to schools, they train, but the school trains too. The idea is to have a mock scenario where people volunteer, like on a Friday afternoon when there's no class or anything like that, and we have an active shooter scenario, staff can act like they're in class, and all of a sudden it happens, and we actually go through it. That is the best type of training you're actually doing. And the police train because they also do their active shooter training, because what they do is to neutralize the threat, but we also get to do the drill. And that's always a good thing to do. All right, and so and there are two videos that I want to show because those two videos will actually put you also, you can visualize exactly what happens and what to do. I think this is from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. They put this video, pretty good video. Okay.
Morning that began like any other turned tragic today when an employee opened fire on his supervisor and fellow coworkers.
Students, parents, teachers are asking why today, after a bloody reputation, finds this news.
Details are just coming in, but we're being told that a heavily armed gunman opened fire this evening at the mall food court behind me. There's no official word on any casualties yet, but one eyewitness reported seeing at least 6 people shot.
Active shooter. A gunman or gunmen killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area.
You gotta get some sleep. You're looking like a vampire.
You sleep. We ain't got no babies at home.
Oh, I forgot. Caution, there are some scenes here that may be disturbing. It's liability, I have to tell everybody this. There's nothing graphic, but it could be disturbing.
Keeping you up.
Then we can.
We tried, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to let you go.
Active shooter killings are a tragic, unpredictable reality, and one that is becoming more common.
Since 2006, the U.S. has averaged an active shooter event with 4 or more deaths every 2.9 months.
Even though the number of active shooter events has been increasing, your odds of being involved in one are still very slim. But just like fire drills and earthquake preparedness, making a plan in advance can make all the difference. If you do find yourself in the middle of a senseless attack, the why doesn't matter.
Hey buddy.
Something's happening.
What matters is surviving.
On average, 20 mass shootings take place in the U.S. every year.
Killers usually choose their victims at random. They look for easy targets. So the harder you are to see or to hit, the safer you are. When an attack starts, if you can find a way out of the location, do so.
Get out.
If you stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a life and death event, you improve your chances of making it out. Visualize your movements in advance.
Get us out. Stay behind me.
Use cover, something that will stop a bullet, and concealment, something that at least keeps you out of sight.
Attention South Bay units, go through response needed regarding a 245 ESV 417. So the town center shopping mall. Suspects wearing a face mask, possible body armor.
Use any available means to get out, including emergency exits or windows. Most restaurants and retail locations will also have exits in the back, through kitchens or stock rooms. Even in the best cases, police are minutes, not seconds away. You must take action to protect yourself.
Okay, everybody stay calm. It's probably just a drill.
If you can help others without putting yourself in unnecessary danger, do so.
What's your name?
Lori.
It's gonna be okay.
If you can't move safely to an exit, get to a room or a confined area you can lock down. Then secure the location.
Secure your location.
Oh my God.
There's somebody shooting.
Everybody stay calm. Remember how we train. Everybody get in this corner, away from the windows. Get the emergency bag from my desk. Help her.
Drywall won't stop a bullet, but there are steps to take to stay safe. Lock or barricade the doors, turn off the lights, move away from any windows, and silence your cell phone.
The other door doesn't lock. Move desks or anything, just block it.
A modern emergency bag can include a first aid kit, gloves, emergency plans for the building, and casualty cards to alert first responders to any wounded victims.
Most active shooter situations are over in 10 to 15 minutes.
Attention Lakeway units, code 3 is needed. We have 245 GSV 417. It's going to be at Alexandria College. Multiple victims down.
Law enforcement's first responsibility when entering an active shooter situation is to stop the suspect, not to render aid to the victims. Medical teams will enter the scene as soon as the suspect is no longer a threat or is confirmed in another location. Silence any cell phones and remain quiet. Do not alert the shooter to your presence.
Sheriff's Department, is there anyone inside?
Thank God.
Just hang tight. We'll be back to get you.
Defend yourself.
If you cannot escape the location and you can't shelter in place, you may have to defend yourself as a last resort. Almost anything can be turned into an improvised weapon. Look for something that can disrupt the shooter's ability to see, breathe, or control their weapon. When law enforcement arrives, they are going to be in a heightened state of readiness and awareness, looking for any aggressive movements. So keep your hands visible and follow any commands you are given.
A shooter. I just saw one shooter.
Especially in developing situations, engaging law enforcement, running toward them, reaching for them, even to thank them, could put people at risk.
Surviving an active shooter. For more information, visit activeshooter.lasd.org.
So there's a couple things that you saw in that video. Number one is once the police get there, it's very important that when you come out like this. You coming out like this, police have their sights on your hands. You want to come out like this. You don't want to come out like this, grabbing your phone. Oh my God, because this right here is dangerous. And here's the other thing. If police get you, handcuff you, don't take it personal. Because they don't know who you are. Because the active shooter may have tried to infiltrate themselves. Although they usually don't do that, but they can. With those who are running out. So police don't know who's coming out. Like I said, police go in to neutralize the situation. That's the first thing they have to do. Before Columbine, police would go there and that's what they did in Columbine. Surround the area, hostage situation. But the time they do that, people are getting killed inside. That's why police have to go in. I'm hurt, what are you doing? They're not there to help anybody. They're there to go straight to the source, to the threat, and neutralize it. Okay. So that's law enforcement's job. Once it's neutralized and everything is safe, usually the individual will say,